Good morning everyone, happy Monday. Jackie here for Join Jackie on Monday mornings live. So this morning I really wanted to talk about more topics to do with buying and selling real estate. So the last few topics I've spoken about stamp duty. So we did 3 weeks on that. And then last week I spoke about moving and so doing your purchase and sale settlement on the same day. Today, I'm talking about the risks associated with a contract for the purchase or sale of real estate. Now, generally, in any contract that you sign, it doesn't have to be for real estate, but a contract will often say who bears what risk. So if you were, for example, ordering some kind of shipment, who bears the risk of if something goes wrong in the shipment? So is the person sending it bearing the risk or the person receiving it bearing the risk? So you do have to always look at a contract to see who has the risk. So a shipment is one sort of risk that you may look at. And today specifically about real estate, the risk is damage to the house or property before settlement. So technically in a contract, the vendor has to give the property to the purchaser at settlement in the same condition as it was in when they inspected the property and signed the contract. All right, so they can't have caused damage to it since. They can't have removed things that should not have been removed. And also they need to not just dump a whole lot of rubbish there as well. So the property has to be in the same condition as when it was inspected. If there is, a major event like a flood or a fire, who bears the risk of that? Well, technically, it's supposed to be the vendor. So the vendor should remain insured through the contract, and once they've settled, they can cancel their insurance. But if you're a purchaser, how are you going to trust that the vendor has sufficient insurance? So I always recommend that a purchaser gets a certificate of currency for insurance over something that they've just signed a contract for as well. Potentially your bank that is coming in to help you to finance is also going to want to see that that's in place already too. Because then if the vendor's insurance is not sufficient and, they were significantly undervalued, you still have to settle on the contract. So how are you going to have the house or building reinstated or whatever has gone wrong? So that's the worst case scenario when there's major damage, which is out of the control of anyone's hands. So having insurance, both parties insured, is really important. But what happens if there's a small item of damage and it's not really worth insuring? So for damage up to about $10,000, there is a system in standard contracts for real estate, and that is if the purchaser does their inspection just before settlement and there's a new hole in the wall because when they removed their their furniture, accidentally a leg of a chair went through the wall or something like that. The contract says that a certain amount of money can be withheld at settlement to make sure that that thing gets fixed. The purchaser has to contribute the same amount of money though. So it makes this mechanism where both of them have to be as committed as each other to fixing the problem, because if one person has to commit the funds and then there's no commitment from the other person, it can end up sitting around and never getting done. So if there's a hole in a wall, for example, And there's a quote that it's going to cost, $700 to have a plasterer come out and fix it, and then another couple of $100 to have the paint matched and repaint, because it might have to be the whole wall, because you can't just patch the paint. So you've got a quote of about $1,300 to do the whole fix. So $1,300 can be withheld from settlement, and it's held in the trust account for the solicitor, but the purchaser also has to put $1,300 in, so that there's actually some incentive to have it finished. Because once the vendor has left, the purchaser's in possession. And what if they just sit there and never have these trades actually happen, and they just never get it fixed, and the vendor never gets their money back? So that's the incentive. They both have to put an equal amount into the trust account. Property settles, then there's at least some leverage for the tradies to be engaged. There's a pot of funds there to have the things paid for. Hopefully it costs less, in which case the vendor would get some money back and the purchaser would get their money back once it's all complete. So there is a mechanism for that as well. So there you go, 3 scenarios really that I've talked about today. The first on a general contract, and generally if you are entering any sort of contract, there's usually some kind of risk, and who bears that risk while things are getting done. And I use shipment as an example. So who bears the risk of the things arriving unbroken? The second example was the extreme example on real estate, and if a property completely burns down or there's a major flood, and so who bears the risk of that, because the vendor technically is supposed to provide the property in the condition in which it was inspected, but there's been a major disaster, so there has to be insurance. And then the third scenario is a smaller situation of damage, where the vendor has to provide the property at settlement in the condition that it was in when they inspected, but now there's a hole in a wall, or there's something that has been damaged, and there's a mechanism built into the contracts that covers that scenario. So hopefully that helps. 3 examples there to think about and to keep your at front of mind as you go through various things that you do in life. These videos, while I do them live, are posted onto the page. So on the videos tab on our Facebook page, there's heaps of topics. You can go back if you have a problem and see if I've already done a video on that topic. Same goes for friends or family. If something is relevant for them and you want to try and find a bit of advice, go back and tag their name in a video or direct message to them. If there is a topic that I haven't covered and you'd like me to cover, by all means direct message us, either through the Facebook page or from our website. All our email addresses, our direct email addresses are there as well. So I hope that helps. Regionally, we're back in the offices this week. When you come in, obviously, and when we're not in rooms by ourselves, we're wearing masks. But otherwise, regionally, under those conditions, we're still able to provide all the services that we need to provide for you to keep going. So hope that our Metro colleagues come out of lockdown before the long weekend. Otherwise, because of the long weekend, I'm not going to be with you next Monday. It'll be a fortnight till I see you again. So until then, hope you're well. And stay warm with these chills that we have lately. Take care.